Yeah, a very warm greeting to all of you. I'm architect Manjari Rai, PhD scholar, Amity School of Architecture and Planning, Amity University, Jaipur. And the subject which I'm going to talk about today is understanding the informal morphology of urban villages as a prime factor towards formation of a socially cohesive society. And it is a case of Shivdaspur, Jaipur. To start with, let's understand very briefly what are urban villages and their basic traits. So these urban villages are rural setups that were originally located in the peri-urban areas of the metropolis, and eventually with the urbanization process were merged into the urban landscape. This has been a regular practice in almost all master plans, but the irony is, I'm sorry for my constant coughing, I'm not in the right state, so kindly pardon me for this. So I was talking about this has been a regular practice in almost all master plans, but the irony is no separate planning or development guidelines ever are made for these changing setups, which eventually led to a situation full of crisis and lack of infrastructural development. The aim of my study is therefore to understand the takeaways. That is, amidst all this, there are certain aspects of community life in these unorganized developments that have intense connection with man and surrounding. There is always a network of informal interactions that happen between people all around the built form, streets, open spaces, etc. in these areas. It is the spatial organization which is an outcome of human activities here in such setups. This is basically the hypothesis of my research subject. So what I'm trying to focus is on understanding human behavior with respect to spaces designed for them and mapping the fluidity of spaces in an urban village through a case study of Shivdaspur area. Now, my study started with understanding the context or the idea or the concept behind the settlement, any settlement. And I summarized it as it is the product of socio-cultural values. I'll be telling you how. Amos Rapoport, one of my very favorite writers, once said that mentions socio-cultural aspects as the shaping and modifying factor in a settlement. Now, what does this mean? It is actually any settlement is established considering the functional space requirements for human activities. This process is further influenced by the socio-cultural requirements of the place or the society. It has a very direct impact on the activity pattern, the physical shape of built space, location of its appearance, and the societal connect amongst its inhabitants. Now, the process of growth and transformation of an urban village can be observed as an unplanned system of development, wherein not much role is played by the development authorities or the urban planners. It is a very organic settlement started or eventually laid up by the social structure of the settlement, and that gives shape to the morphology. This is the reason why a settlement or a neighborhood that is created through this ideology has some specific traits or characteristics compared to all others. Socio-cultural aspects of the place become significant in the formation and creation of meaningful spaces. And this gives forms to an urban village or any settlement for that matter, which has a very organic character. The living spaces of these urban villages or communities show a major shift from rural to urban setups. This is majorly because they tend to follow the lifestyles of village life, which they had been living for since ages, yet there is a need and demand to adapt to the urban lifestyles as well. Now, something about my study area, that is the Shivdaspura. Shivdaspura is a small village settlement located down south of the Jaipur district along the main Jaipur-Tong highway. It lies under the category of growth node in the present master plan and considered to be settlement showing trends of economic and demographic growth over a period of time. Many large-scale townships and apartment projects of some repute groups are mushrooming all around it, with few projects already constructed and many in the pipeline. So this is eventually changing the skyline of this area. Now, major economy generator for people of Shivdaspur is still agriculture. It was once considered as the good mandi. This, but the addition of shops in the residential areas can be seen in large numbers. This shows the need of additional source of income for residents. Large number of people from this area commute every day to nearby Sitapur industrial area for work. Now, these are two Google Earth images showing the growth pattern of Shivdaspura. One is from 2011 and other is from 2022. So, through these images, we can very well see the growth, the type of growth that this settlement is observing. My research strategies for this paper was first is to understand the past. Then it was like mapping the present. What are the changes that is happening because of this engulfed approach of master plans? And then I've tried to lay down certain concerns regarding the subject. Now, to start with the past is, settlements of past have very significantly proved that urban form and spatial layout have played a major role towards creating a resilient society in the past, be it planned city of Jaipur or all the organic settlements nearby or throughout the India. It is a very common observation. This is done by securing livability and flexibility of urban environments that house a constantly transforming society. Now, about the present scenario, it is in the recent times that architecture and planning have been more inclined towards fulfilling the residential needs of mass migrated population in the cities. This in turn has given rise to a development which lacks cultural identity and placelessness. Mass production of standardized house designs are planned and executed to fulfill the emerging housing needs. So the concerns which I had laid down as this further gave birth to two very important concerns. First is, are spatial development strategies and urban form of present times effective enough to create a connected and socially inclusive residential neighborhood? This is the major issue which I'm, studying in my research also. Second one is the takeaway. That is, what characteristic special features were present in the cities that of the past that added value and quality to socio-cultural aspects of life in the yesteryears, and that can be continued in future developments as well. So the study thus aims to understand these aspects of correlation between spatial layout and social cohesion in an urban village that are key elements of creating a cohesive society. The methodology which I've adapted for writing this paper was for qualitative analysis. The urban area setting and form are observed through a series of site visits that involved rigorous mapping, photo documentation, very importantly, the residents' group surveys and interviews. Secondary sources included reviewing published papers and digitizing various scaled maps from Google Earth. That was majorly done to see the development typologies. Now from here, I'll be starting the observation and analysis. I've covered three major aspects. One is the growth node or the central core or the major interaction hub of the entire settlement. Second aspect was studying about the roads, the circulation spines. Yes, the circulation spine is probably the right way. Roads never existed in rural settlements. They were the paths. And the third was to understand the change or the morphological development in the living areas. So for this paper, I've touched these three aspects as my study. So first one is observation analysis, socio-cultural approach in space morphology. In a settlement, space that have a dynamic character generally creates a space pattern which grows naturally. In case of an urban village, that dynamic space is usually an open space located probably centrally for all sorts of activities and interactions between the local people. It is considered to be the most approached place or the hub of the entire settlement. It has space for every genre of the society. The shape of open areas tend to form naturally within certain geographic limitations, wherein the main activity was social interaction between the members in the specific location. The natural shape answers to the prominent need and socio-cultural aspects of the people. Now, in case of Shivdaspura, Shivdaspura was once considered to be good mandi of this region. They had nice markets of good, and was, people from old wall city of Jaipur also used to come in for purchasing these good items in this specific village. So when we look at the settlement, it has a very nicely placed core area, which is placed centrally, and there are 4 gates in all cardinal directions, very much similar to the city of Jaipur. And through these gates, all the residential and other areas are approached. These are 2 images which talks about the settlement pattern of Shivdaspura. The first one is settlement pattern along with the land use of Shivdaspura area, in which the central core is the red color indicates all the commercial, the so-called commercial part. So Shivdaspura is a typical village settlement of the past. It started with a good mandi as core and has seen many transformations with time and need. This core forms a central market square as seen in the figure, which is approached by 4 gates in all cardinal directions. The square has temples, shops and their extensions, panchayat building, space for informal sector, etc., and is the place where people meet and interact every day. This is the most important aspect of my study. It is therefore acting as a collective or joint space for trading, socializing, parking, and many other such joint day-to-day activities. A socially cohesive society can be achieved only when we learn to share our lives with each other, when we start connecting naturally without any compulsion or hidden intentions. It can be it can be a need based or time spent karna hai or whatever, but it starts with a core which actually acts as interaction spaces for all these segments, for all males, females, for people of every segments in the society. Now, the contrast is, unlike the newly formed residential campuses of urban areas, which generally have a large out-of-scale central landscape area, common cores of these urban villages performing multiple tasks simultaneously are considered to be the promoters of such informal interaction between people from all sectors and ages. This was the first and a very important takeaway for my subject. Second is about the street patterns and forms. In urban villages, streets have a unique physical shape that functions are not just as approach system towards build block. It also has a special role of acting as small open space for the dwellers. The small niches, or we can see that in the picture, the intermediate spaces, they act as buffer spaces in the streets. And any time of the day, if you visit, they actually are, space or hub for multiple activities going on. Its shape can vary according to the location and function. The overall fabric of built and open space is dense and connected owing to harsh climate conditions, and also to form a visual connect among its residents. The irregular geometry and shape of street network is an outcome of the layout of residential blocks. Interestingly, they give rise to a certain number of open spaces as seen in the figure in between that acts as buffer spaces and plays the role of small gathering space for people of abutting households. A very important aspect it is. Because of the organic character of the settlement and nature of the society and human scale in the built section, there was a very high level of natural surveillance in these neighborhoods, even during hot afternoons. A very important and a very major concerns in present times it is. We can place as many CCTV cameras as we want, but still we're not able to stop the crime. As very rightly said, eyes on street by Jane Jacobs. This is something which very well can be seen in these type of settlements. Streets have always been a hub of social interaction, space for multiple activities, collective gatherings, and many such hustle and bustle of everyday life. They come to life through these activities. In the present times, these streets or the roads are designed for vehicles, and all other all the other aspects which I've just mentioned are never thought or bothered about. Kitni chaudi sadak hai, kitni gaadiyan jayengi, 2 lane, 3 lane, that is the major concern. Very rightly said that streets come to life through these informal activities that take place in them. Urban farm is considered to be a strong supporter for all such activities, as seen in the figure below. One can see life during all the time of the day. The compact organic structuring made these villages walkable even during harsh climatic conditions. So these two photographs, they are typical street pattern and its transformation of Shivdaspur. We can very well see the transformation. That is, one is taken long back. When I was doing my post-graduation, I did a small study at that time. So this is an image from, I suppose, 2010. The other one is the present image where the residences have been transformed. I'll be talking about that uh, on a later slide. And that shows a transformation, how because of, transformations done on the street, the house facades and all, the culture of the typology of street is changing. Yahan bhi wo vehicular path and everything has come into picture. Third aspect is living space, is a very important aspect. Residential land use dominates other uses of the town and compromises 73% of the total developed area in use. I'm talking about town because abhi engulf ho chuka hai and the transformation process has already been started. The houses are generally low-rise and haphazardly situated along narrow streets. Some of the residential premises are also used for commercial activities now. Now, these three sketches show the morphology of a typical layout of a house in Shivdaspura. Earlier, the layout of how the kitchen was in the open. In the first image, that is the stage one, we can see a big, huge courtyard in between, and the most dominating aspect of that courtyard was the kitchen was placed in the open, which was definitely, very rightly said in Bengali, Hathir Unun. They have a chula, which very efficiently they can, barish hai, so they can place it inside. But the major aspect, the major part of the kitchen was always in the open. Most of the activities of day-to-day life was performed in the central courtyard. It directly used to open in the road, where the front was mostly used as bed or veranda, separated from inside areas either by columns or a simple curtain was used. Now here comes the major aspect. The rooms, the bedrooms or the living rooms were not that important. What was important was the Baitak area, where interaction from the outside world was happening, and the central court, that is the central courtyard, where the internal interactions of all sorts were happening from people of definitely all age groups. Certain transformations were done with time, with new additions in the family. Now, what were those? New rooms were added and a defined otla or veranda was made for men of the house. Kitchen was still in the open. With the changing times, lifestyle and need also changed. Toilets were added in the courtyard. Later on, these bettocks were transformed to incorporate shops for additional income. Now, this is a very important aspect. Ye tab hua jab when these villages were, in the transformation stage, jab wo धीरे धीरे वो urban village के phase में जा रहे थे, because the master plan had already engulfed it. तो definitely migration हो रहा था. Migration के कारण needs बढ़ रही है. अब आसपास के all the agricultural land was then transformed into, buildings and all. Land use change करके buildings were made. So the agriculture was now not the most dominating. अब और फिर कुछ और additional income, they wanted some other additional income. For that, what they did was all the bettocks and all was transformed into shops. Or is एक change से many things were changed, like we saw in the this previous slide. The second picture talks about it. Now, I think we can now understand the comparative analysis between these two pictures. Courtyards, which was once a very important interaction space, is now being transformed into a small circulation veranda. Scarce indoor living partly seemed to compel the residents to use the outdoor spaces for interaction. This was the theme which was, adapted in the earlier times. I do understand with time, need changes, there are many aspects which change in life and we need to adapt to new changes as well. But these are the takeaways. We'll have to think about, designing in these terms. This shows a gradual shift in lifestyle and socioeconomic conditions of the area. The architectural character of colonnaded verandas now being transformed to shutters of shops. And the spaces which were once considered to be interaction spaces, the otlas, the verandas, which was always filled by people of different age groups sitting and chatting around, are now being transformed into shuttered gateways. Shutter band hai, to wo interaction bhi band. Everything is, and the character is more of a commercial now. Now, the conclusions of the entire study was urban villages grow as a settlement within a city area. A place can be categorized as an urban village from certain aspects. One, the people of these type of settlements maintain a strong social bond. They can be said to have a very connected lives. Second one is high population density that leads to a very interwoven fabric of spaces. The pattern of space in an urban area develops either dynamically or in a very well-planned manner. On the other hand, settlement that exists organically is unplanned and grows according to the need-based approach. It is under a constant developing process and relates with socio-culture and economic needs. They tend to form a very haphazard planning where two or more spaces and patterns collide with each other. But this collision is definitely important. Spaces that are formed here exists as form of open areas where human intervention and interaction play an important role. These interactions form a connect between man and its surroundings to form a homogeneous environment. What planners are doing in the present world is something very different from this. We think about introvert spaces. We think about individual units first and shared spaces on the next platform. Like the spaces which are shared are reduced considerably. Maintain kaun karega, kiska hoga and all. So we think of introvert spaces. We think of drawing, living, dining, bedroom. Sorry. In the present times, there is a significant transformation of the socio-cultural ideologies in the society due to current globalization influences. This has caused a major change in the layout, design, and function of building in each period. Due to this, the spatial structure of the neighborhood has dramatically changed, creating an imbalance in the society. This paper thus tries to analyze the connection between spatial layout and form with social relations in these urban village settlements that majorly are responsible towards forming a connect and in turn create a cohesive society. These are some of the references that I had gone through for writing this paper. That's all from my side. Thank you.